Okay, I think we're live. What's going on, guys? It's Josh Hoskins here. Welcome to Lifestyle Blueprints. I'm starting a new experiment here. I wanted to start streaming the show. A few different reasons. I thought that would be the right choice. And this is my first ever experiment with streaming, so bear with me. If you're watching this, you're probably watching the recording, so take that with what you will, bear with me. I will be releasing clips of the show later for different highlights because I think that's what people really want to watch, but wanted to make sure that there's a cool format here in the form of streaming for you as well. So let's see how this ends up going. But I have a cool show lined up for you. I got a few interesting topics that I really wanted to go over, talking about recently there was this mayor in Florida who I guess was like pulled over because he had like police lights on his car when he's not really a cop, and even as mayor, he's not allowed to have a police car, and then he's in big trouble for it. And there's some interesting circumstances around that I think we can actually draw some lifestyle lessons from, ironically enough. I also wanted to talk about the recent news. The recent news from Bryan Johnson, the renowned billionaire tech founder who is also trying to live forever, and his recent diagnosis with the stomach condition that he has that is apparently somewhat severe. I think there's interesting correlations and things that I can pull from that as well. And then I also want to just go over an interesting Reddit thread I found related to travel and kind of how we as Americans, who I'm assuming is my primary audience here, is our perspective on travel might be influenced a little bit by what we see on that. So it's pretty cool things to go over. But yeah, before we dive into all that, a few things I wanted to go over. I wrote an article on the Bryan Johnson situation. It's live on legendarylifemedia.com. Go ahead and check that out because I think there is some interesting nuggets in there, and anything I miss talking about on the show is going to be in there as well. And we also covered, for the 4th of July here at home in Scottsdale, we covered Medusa playing over at the Gila River Resort Casino, and Crankdat playing at the illustrious Maya nightclub, day club in Scottsdale. And I think it's kind of an interesting perspective. We're going to be putting a piece out on this as well. How the scene in the Southwest here, like the Phoenix, Scottsdale area, but even over in like New Mexico, California, and even Nevada, actually, now that I think about it, I mean, clearly with Vegas and EDC and all the different developments with Sphere, having a lot of EDM shows, I think it's kind of interesting how a lot of people spent the 4th of July raving, which I think is not necessarily what people would associate with 4th of July historically, but now that EDM and raves have become somewhat more of a prominent form of entertainment and nightlife, things that people spend their time doing when they go out, things they do with their friends, I think that's kind of an interesting perspective. I think that's new, and I think it's a cool kind of area of, if you're into that thing, lifestyle to explore. So that's pretty cool. And let me think what else. Oh yeah, if you're in Scottsdale, this coming Saturday, we have an event with, it's not our event, but we're covering it. The Lost Boys, who are friends of Legendary, they helped us with gathering media for the Link event that we did back in March. That was our self-development mixer and networking event. They are themselves putting together a really cool pinup party style event. It's like a pool party that has like a 50s, 60s, like kind of retro vibe at this historic hotel down in South Scottsdale here in Arizona, and it's going to be really, really cool. Some awesome people are going to be there. We'll be there capturing media for an editorial piece, and they also have a really cool lineup of local DJs. Some of them I know personally. It's going to be really, really cool. So if you're in Scottsdale, you're in that area, check it out. We have an article on that. It's live on the homepage at Legendary. You can go check out tickets with the links that are in that article. So really cool stuff coming up, even more down the line, but I just wanted to quickly get that out for today's episode. But let's dive into what I have in store here. So first thing I actually want to talk about, what should be the first thing? Yeah, let's talk about the mayor of Florida, not the mayor of Florida. Florida doesn't have a mayor, but it's a town in Florida called Hialeah. I'm looking at it right now. Hialeah. Okay, yeah. So Yeah, this is what I came across. So this video of a guy called Bryan Calvo. So he's the recently elected mayor of a town in Florida called Hialeah. Okay. And I guess he had his police lights on, even though he's not a police officer. He's the mayor, but he somehow had a possession of a police type vehicle that had emergency lights, and he used them, I guess, to like get somewhere. And then he was pulled over after an illegal left turn by just a local police officer there. And I think this is, I'll get deeper into the story in a second and kind of what we can glean from it. But what's funny is this is the same mayor who I guess recently complained that the Ben Affleck and Matt Damon movie that just came out recently, I think it's called the R.I.P. or something, or the RIP, whatever. I haven't seen it. But he like was complaining about how that movie portrays his city as corrupt. But like, and then not that long later, he gets pulled over for having a police car. I don't know. I think that's hilarious. But what's also crazy is he also, I guess, has a background in law. Like he's an attorney before he was mayor. So I feel like this is something he probably should have known better than to do. And another just interesting fact about him is he's pretty young to be mayor. So I guess he was 27 when he won the mayor race, and 28 when he was sworn in. So he's actually my age. I'm 28, which is crazy. And he's the mayor of a town. So this whole thing happening, and this was recent. I think this was a couple of days ago at the time of this recording. And I don't think there's been any updates on exactly what's going on, if he is going to face consequences or just is getting a slap on the wrist. I don't know. But the whole story got me thinking about really what the slippery slope of sudden success is. And not that I know for sure if his success was sudden. I don't know his full background. I just kind of know the facts that were listed off of him from my research. But what I have seen and experienced in myself, both having some modicum of success in my own life, as well as seeing this kind of pattern of behavior on different levels with different people I know who experienced a surge of success at some point, especially at a younger age. One thing I've noticed in those situations is how rapidly it can all be lost by letting it go to your head too quickly. And this can happen in a lot of different ways. Like for me, it was a very common trap of lifestyle inflation. When I first came into my first serious amount of money, because I had it in my head that since I was able to make that much money at that time, I'll always be able to make that much money. That caused me to be pretty reckless with how I was saving versus how much I was spending. Like, even though I had a lot of income coming in, I wasn't necessarily investing or saving it properly or in the right proportion. And when I was eventually rug pulled, it was a big setback. And that's just one way it can show up, but it does come down to if you mistake, this is actually the way I heard Conan O'Brien put it once, and I think this is brilliant. If you mistake your winning poker hand for personal brilliance, you can end up falling from grace far more quickly than you might realize, because you can ascribe the luck that you've gotten to attain a certain level of success. Not that skill is not involved, of course it's involved, but any kind of success is a mix of being in the right place in the right time, luck, and having the right skill set. And if you get to a point where you allow your mind to completely ignore the luck aspect of that, then you can end up falling into different traps later on. And this can happen on so many different levels, but it actually happens, I think, somewhat the most frequently when you initially get a certain burst of success. And I think like that's also where this whole concept of humility comes into play and becomes valuable. Because I think a lot of people think of humility through like a moral lens, where it's not, where they make it about like not being a selfish person or seeing yourself as better than other people. It's seen morally. But I think it's actually more helpful to see humility through a practical lens. That's just the way I see it. If you don't keep things in the right perspective, which is what humility is, you are much more likely to encounter a great fall later on because you have a skewed perspective. You're not seeing things the right way, and humility is a way of keeping your lens from puffing up and becoming clouded. It keeps everything sober for you. You're able to see things with more clarity because you're not putting yourself on too high of a pedestal, even though you may have earned a certain right to be proud due to your success. if you let that become a point to where you're elevating yourself and your ego, then that can become actually harmful to you. And I think that's even more of an aspect maybe than just seeing it in a moral way. Now, I'm sure this guy, this mayor guy, after seeing a successful career as an attorney and then becoming the mayor of his town at a pretty young age, 27, I'm willing to bet he probably thought that he was kind of invincible. I mean, I think I would, which is, kind of why I'm putting him on blast here. I don't judge him too hard, though, because I can see myself kind of just, if I was blasting and cruising through life like that, successful attorney, now I'm a mayor of a town, and I'm doing it at such a young age even, and that adds to it. I can see that can put you in a headspace where you have a skewed perspective, and then that causes you to make one mistake because you feel like no one can touch you because you're so successful and cool or whatever. And that causes you to be less careful, and then a blunder can end up taking it all away. Now, I don't know what's going to end up happening to this guy. Like I said earlier, I don't know if he's going to be facing heavy repercussions because of it, but I think this is the kind of story that's a good reminder for anyone, and no matter how much success you find in your lifestyle or how much success you seem to have, no matter how much forward momentum you even have, you do have to maintain a certain level of humility to make sure that you don't get sloppy, okay? And that you don't lose your focus because your ego got too big. And I don't keep my ego in check because I'm some humble dude. I keep my ego in check because I don't want it to get in the way of seeing something that could be my downfall or hurt me. And I think that's a lesson that doesn't get talked about often enough. So I think the next one I'll do is, those are really all my thoughts about the Bryan Calvo situation. I think I'm going to talk about the other Bryan now that's in the news, Bryan Johnson, who, many people know of, many people talk about. Definitely, if you're in the chronically online space, you've seen memes of him. But he is the tech CEO, multimillionaire, maybe he's a billionaire, I don't know. But he's the guy who is basically on this big health crusade to live as long as possible and figure out how to help humanity live forever. Is his self-proclaimed goal. I don't know if that's for PR or whatever, or to get publicity, but that is what he says. And he recently announced on X a few days ago, it was June 30th, I believe, that he was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And his exact words were, "My stomach is eating itself," which is pretty, it's pretty metal. I'm sorry that happened to him, but it's pretty metal, I gotta say. It's a pretty hardcore way of putting it. And in typical Bryan Johnson fashion, he followed it up with a very long and meticulous explanation, breaking down all the tests, medical procedures, and research he went through to arrive at the diagnosis. And yeah, I'm sure the health nerds and the longevity enthusiasts will eat that up. But what really stood out to me was something he wrote at the very end of the post, which was, quote, "We fill our days mostly on things that are trivial next to what we ultimately care about. We know deep down, however, that in the noise of it all, health is easily forgotten until it's the only thing that matters." And we spend a fraction of our lives truly sober to the preciousness of life. We feel it when someone we love dies, when a child is born, when we come close to death ourselves, or when a diagnosis marks our limit. In those moments, we are sobered, and the rarity of it all becomes self-evident. Imagine the existence we built together if clarity didn't fade. And that kind of made me stop and think, because Bryan Johnson is a pretty interesting figure, to say the least. I know I'm not the only person who feels that way. A lot of different opinions you can have about the guy, okay? Personally, I kind of have this strange mix of being slightly weirded out by him, but I also have a degree of respect for him, because I think whatever your opinion is, there's something admirable about the fact that he has taken the massive amount of resources that he's accumulated for himself, being kind of in that 1% category, and he has dedicated them seemingly towards something he believes can benefit humanity, that's for the public good, and rather than using all of that to just accumulate more power for himself. Now, that might be a naive way of seeing it. I don't know the guy personally. I don't know his full story or what's actually happening behind the scenes. But I do think there is nonetheless an interesting lesson here for the hyper health conscious crowd. Many of them are people that I know. I kind of find myself in those circles sometimes. And the overall longevity community. And there's something fascinating in my opinion, with trying to escape death, or at least viewing our own mortality as something that's inherently bad. And I think that's kind of where the longevity movement can potentially go too far. And for the record, like, I am completely supportive of longevity. I want to live a happy, active life as I get older. But for me, like, longevity is not about living forever. It's just making sure that I die well, right? Like, I don't really care all that much about, like, how long I live. I just don't want my final years to be like with a walker and not being able to like play with my grandkids or whatever is the situation. I want to be able to like still run around and like do cool things and climb mountains and have sex and like do all like the fun things that you need a healthy body for, even when I'm towards my latter years, right? Like, that to me is what I think of when I think of longevity. I don't think of some like, in my opinion, non-human obsession with like living as long as I possibly can. That's not really my goal. I'm not really afraid of death in that way, I guess. And like I guess what I really believe is that we're here to learn our lessons in this life. We're here to experience it as much as we can and eventually move on to whatever comes next. And the refusal to accept death can sometimes become a refusal to accept that life has a natural cycle. And I think that's just where the longevity movement can sometimes need to be careful. Now, on a much more practical level, because I don't think really that's Bryan Johnson's problem. I don't think that's really what he's doing, honestly, from the stuff I've seen of him. But I do appreciate his work, regardless of whether or not that's true, because I think he has helped encourage people every day to be more proactive about their health. That's what Bryan Johnson has done. Bryan Johnson has, regardless of what you think about the specifics of what he puts out, the fact that he is bringing more attention due to his sensationalized presence. Sometimes it takes a sensationalized extreme figure like Bryan Johnson to make people stop and think about things that they usually ignore, right? So I don't, obviously the protocol that he's doing is kind of untenable for the average person, but the fact that he is doing these crazy things for the sake of his health, and he has a camera on him and he has a platform and he's putting it out, I think that at least gets the average person possibly thinking about how they can take better care of themselves and be a little bit more proactive about their health in more creative ways that they might not have thought about before. And I think he deserves at least some credit for that. I don't necessarily know if he's the epitome of exactly what you should follow, but he at least is using his zaniness and his craziness and his sensationalized kind of extreme approach to bring more health consciousness to the masses. And I think that's actually pretty commendable. Because so many things that we care about in our life depend on our health. I mean, your relationships, your ability to travel, your ability to work, your ability to experience new things, your ability to be present with the people you love. All those things become much harder when your health declines. And this diagnosis that he has, I think, is a good reminder that nobody's invincible. And no matter how much money you have, no matter how much data you collect or how disciplined you are, illness is something we all will, unfortunately, have to face at some point. Now, I know that Bryan Johnson's diagnosis is not necessarily a life-threatening condition. It appears to be something that is manageable, although it can have some long-term health implications. I don't want to go too deep into that, but I think it is cool that he is doing something that is, in his legacy, I think, is going to be remembered as someone who really brought a lot of new knowledge and new insights about having the healthiest life possible to the general public. And I don't think that you need to be, an expert into, measuring your sperm count to hours of sleep ratio or whatever it is that he does. I don't think you need to necessarily be that dialed in to get insights from the stuff that he puts out. And yeah, I mean, it is kind of weird how far he goes, but I think he at least is doing something good for the world through that. So yeah, there's that. I think that's kind of my overall thoughts on that situation. A lot of people are talking about it, so I just wanted to weigh in. Last thing I'll really quickly go over is I was thinking about world travel with the World Cup festivities. I mean, down here in Phoenix, the streets are basically packed out every day at different places. People with, their Mexico team jerseys. I know Mexico just lost, which a lot of people were upset about. Sorry. But that kind of got me thinking about world travel, because there's also all these reels and highlight kind of montages coming out of people from other countries coming to America and like giving their reactions. So I just wanted to kind of learn a little bit more about that, and I came across this travel r/travel subreddit that was people who have visited the USA for the first time. What was the biggest shock you got? And I wanted to take some of the answers that I thought were pretty cool. One person said, the size of Lake Michigan. I asked other passengers what ocean we were flying over. I think that's actually funny, because I feel like even to Americans, the Great Lakes are really big. That's not necessarily like a foreigner thing, although I suppose it's kind of uniquely American to be pretty unaware of realities at the other side of even your own country, right? Like if someone, I think what's kind of interesting about, here's the thing, I love New York City. I don't mean to throw shade, but one thing that really annoys me are people from New York who like have never left New York in any meaningful way, and they just assume that the whole world goes by their rules and that New York City is like the only place that exists. And I think that's just hilarious how like I've been to New York City before and talked to people who are only from New York, and like the conversations that you have with them about other parts of the country and the assumptions that they make and the things that they think, which seem to probably be primarily gotten from like TV shows and movies and things that they've heard through a game of telephone from other people. It's just kind of funny. I think that there's an interesting kind of dynamic that's unique, not just to America, but just to countries of the size and width, breadth of America, that there's different parts of even the same country that can be very radically different and can even be very opposed to each other in a way. Opposed is probably the wrong word, but you know what I mean. So another cool one was, I came from a small island. The fact that you can drive in a straight line for hours is so weird. And that's always something that I wanted to do. Imagine being free enough in every sense, financially, relationally, whatever, to be able to just hop in a nice car or a motorcycle, if that's your thing, and just drive around the country. That to me sounds so awesome. I'd be going around the country. I'd be picking fights, going to dive bars, picking up chicks in small towns everywhere. I'd be doing all the cool things, like going to cool monuments and places. That would, to me, that's like probably the best possible life, just to be a total nomad and just roam around the country with money not being an object, with no real worries, and just driving around everywhere. And it is kind of, I think, a uniquely American aesthetic to like just drive for hours, actually going somewhere. Like you have a destination, but like to get there, you have to be driving for hours. Like I feel like the road trip is kind of an American, I don't want to say it's uniquely American, because I'm sure you can do road trips in all other types of places in the world. But I feel like the American road trip has its own like firm identity in the culture, and I actually think that's pretty cool. And I think if someone from outside the US comes here and gets to experience it, that's a really, really cool thing. Another answer was, to be honest, people were way nicer than I expected. I don't mean the service staff, etc. People in general were nice to us and to each other, had no weird interactions during our visit. And that makes me wonder which part of the US they actually visited. I feel like in general, people in the US actually are friendly, but I also feel like part of why they might have felt such a warm welcome is the fact that they were in fact visitors. Like when I meet a foreign person who's experiencing America for the first time, I'm definitely way more friendly, purely due to like the fascination aspect, because I really want to know like what their thoughts are, what their impressions are, having come from another country, and what their perspective is. But like I try to think I'm a friendly person, but I can also be like kind of, depending on my mood, I can also shut down if a stranger tries to talk to me or whatever. So it just makes me wonder, because like I feel like there's definitely parts of the US that are more friendly than other places too. But yeah, just an interesting thought. Where do you think is the friendliest place in the US? Put that in the comments. Another one was how big everything is. Roads, buildings, food portions, people, attitudes, tourism. Tips, voices, drama, everything. That's right. Everything is bigger in America. You know what else is big here? I'll let you think about it. Whatever came to your mind, that's what it is. To me, I had this question with a friend. They said the weirdest thing was... Okay, yeah, they said the weirdest thing was the drug commercials and that there were so many of them. That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, the side effects. This is a uniquely American thing. This makes me proud to be an American. It is how long the side effects part of a drug commercial is. That is something so... There's something nice. It reminds me of my childhood. It reminds me of my childhood as a kid. Why are these commercials showing on stuff kids watch? I don't know. But as a kid, just, watching cartoons, flipping through the channels, the drug commercial comes on, and they talk about, some condition that I as a kid have never heard of. What the hell is cirrhosis of the liver? I don't know what that is. And then it talks about it a little bit. It talks about hey, you should talk to your doctor about it, whatever. Sometimes they have some kind of skit or storyline inside of the commercial where it's this old person goes up to his wife and he's like, oh, I'm feeling this pain, and she's like, have you seen Cymbalta or whatever the drug is? And then and then the side effects part comes on. That's what I want to get to. The side effects. Here's what if you've never seen one of these commercials, if you're for some reason someone outside the US watching this, these commercials have... Okay, the side effects part is at least 2/3 of the commercial, number one. It usually takes, everything about the drug and the reason why you should consider the drug and why it's so good, that takes up maybe the first, 30%. The rest of it is just listing side effects. So imagine that. And these are, not short commercials. These are, 1 to 2 minute long commercials a lot of the time. Okay, so, that alone is insane. Then the backdrop while they're listing the side effects, because, they can't just, it usually takes them a minute at least to get through all the side effects. And the side effects are these are dark. This is dark shit. It's thoughts of depression, suicide, boils on your different areas. It's pretty brutal stuff, but they have to have some kind of backdrop. So they usually put it next to something super wholesome and sometimes even angelic. You'll see a family in all white with the bloom turned all the way up, so it looks like they're in there's flowers around, they're in heaven, prancing around, while some grocery store intercom lady voice is the side effects include death, suicide, psychotic breaks leading to mass murder, also tummy aches, and you're oh, this is a really... I feel like that was a psyop. I won't get into the conspiracy theory stuff, but if there was ever a case to be made for psyops, I think the side effect aspect of drug commercials is up there. And I don't think that's even up for debate. Next person said the portion sizes. I ordered a small drink and accidentally hydrated a family of 4. Yeah, speaking of everything being bigger. Hold on, I messed my stream up here. But yeah, they said... The portion sizes, I ordered a small drink and accidentally hydrated a family of 4. Yeah, everything is bigger. When are we going to accept that the American public is fully incapable of controlling what we eat? I feel like we've run the experiment long enough. We cannot be trusted with our own health. And I don't think, by the way, it's an American thing exclusively, though. I think it's just a human thing. If any other country had portion sizes like ours, they would be just as fat and gross. I'm gonna die on that hill. But here's the thing though, this is probably where I'm also a hypocrite. I love that it's an option. I may order the salad most of the time, but god damn it, I still want to see the double-decker sandwich that's also somehow made of a sandwich on the menu because I'm a goddamn American. I like having the option. I like knowing that I could be a fat fuck if I wanted to. If I didn't have the option to be a fat fuck, then being healthy would feel worse. That's my thought. Here's the last one. I think this was by the OP. I'll go first. The fact that tax isn't included in the items until you get to the register. How did we allow ourselves to be collectively gaslighted into thinking it's okay that there's like a surprise bonus tax on everything. That you don't know exactly what the cost of the thing is you're buying until you get to the register. How did we allow ourselves as Americans to be gaslit into thinking that's an okay thing? That's not okay. I feel like we've all been hypnotized into accepting this. This is one of those issues that I feel like would make anyone a shoo-in for president. Like, okay, this is as political as I'll ever get, but if you were running for president and actually wanted to win, all you need to do is make your complaint solely around like day-to-day things, like making sure that the prices on the grocery stores and the grocery aisle are like include the tax, so you know exactly what you're paying when you get to the register. Like, that's what you should run on if you actually want to win. Who cares about Iran, okay? Who cares about immigration? Make it so all the price labels include the sales tax, or to get rid of sales tax altogether, even better. But either way, that's good. I feel like that's all you really need. That's all you need is do that, like bring the drinking age down to 18, add a few more holidays, make it so that the price on everything is what you actually get. That's like, if you want to win as a politician, run on stuff like that. Why are you running on like, we're gonna do this with immigration? It's like, okay, whatever. Do stuff that actually affects me, you know? I feel like someone should try that. A presidential candidate should try to just like run on like petty stuff like that I think would actually get him the win. People would actually come out and vote for that. Last one. In the US, there's advertising everywhere in the US. You can't drive down the highway without a billboard every half mile. Can't enjoy the scenery because of the billboards in the way. Price tag is not the price you pay. Again, back to my previous point. But I fully agree with this. America has way too much advertising. It's shameful even. There's advertising everywhere. You can't watch anything without it. And if you want to hear even more about my opinion on how bad advertising is, my Patreon's in my description. It's $10 a month. You should go subscribe to it. So that is this episode of Lifestyle Blueprints. It actually went not as long as I thought. I was thinking this would go a little longer. This came out to like a half hour. That's pretty crazy. Maybe I need to do more segments, or maybe a half hour is good. You can let me know if this is a good length of time for the stream. But yeah, I think I'm going to go out and write a couple more articles today, and then I'm going to hop on some editing. So, got a big day ahead of me. I hope you have a big day ahead of you. I appreciate you tuning into the stream if you did. Appreciate you watching if you're watching it afterwards. This has been Josh with Lifestyle Blueprint.